This is an interesting question because I think the first clause could be interpreted in two ways. When it says from observing close friends and relatives, what did you interpret that to mean?
That led me to choose A, like too small sample size.
Yeah, that this person was observing his close friends and relatives, right? How could this also be interpreted?
From observing close friends and relatives in general, like everyone's close friends.
Well, yeah, so observing close friends and relatives interacting, they may not be your close friends and relatives, but you're observing close friends and relatives interact with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I understand how it could be interpreted as that. I don't think it's very clear, but
No, it's not.
like besides the point at this point.
Yes. Well, it does raise a point, and that is that if something can be correctly interpreted in two different ways, sometimes you want to try to be aware of that to the extent you can be, and say, okay, so if I interpret this word in this way, could this answer be correct? If I interpret it in this way, would it be wrong? You know, and so then you're not you. If there's another answer that's better or competing, that might affect what interpretation you should take.
Yeah. So I think I had a especially difficult time with this one.
Yeah.
Because there isn't such a clear problem or flaw with the argument. You know, a lot of times while reading it, I can postulate some flaws, whereas this one is so general that and the answer choices seem to be so different from one another that it could go in a lot of different ways.
But wait, when you read this and they said the amazing frequency with which a good friend or family member knows what one is thinking or feeling cannot be dismissed, did you think, oh yeah, that's telepathy probably does exist?
No, I thought it definitely can be dismissed.
Okay, why? Yeah, why could it be dismissed?
Well, I mean, first during the test I chose A, and then when I went over and reviewed it, I actually ended up choosing E. Because basically they're just like, oh, you have to accept it. I mean, I saw no reason to accept it.
No, hold on. So the second sentence is the premise, right? Do you have to accept that premise? Or, I mean, I'm sorry. Can you not accept that premise if you don't accept the conclusion? Do you have to accept the conclusion to accept this premise? That good friends and family members knows what one is thinking or feeling cannot be dismissed as mere coincidence?
I think you do have to accept that.
I'm sorry. I don't know why it's going on.
Oh, it's very nice music. Well, no, I don't think you do, because you could say no, it can't be dismissed as mere coincidence because they know each other so well, not because of telepathy. Right? You're like, yeah, I agree. It's not mere coincidence. This is not just dumb luck that these friends and associates or these friends and family members are guessing what the other person is thinking. They're guessing what the other person is thinking because they know them so well and they've interacted with them, 1,000 times. So when they, look the other way or something, they know that they're thinking this or they're thinking that.
Yeah.
So you could accept the premise. You could say, no, I don't think it's mere coincidence. I think it's because they know each other so well, without accepting the conclusion.
I mean, once you only agree with that premise, if you already did agree with the conclusion?
That telepathy is indeed possible.
well, that it cannot be dismissed as mere coincidence. You would only say that if you already did.
Well, let's just ignore this argument for a half second.
Yeah.
Do you agree with this sentence, just in the real world, that the amazing frequency with which a good friend or family member knows what one is thinking cannot be dismissed as mere coincidence?
I do not agree in the real world.
You don't think so? You think it's mere coincidence?
A lot of times. Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I don't think it's telepathy. Definitely not.
But what if you found out? First, let's step back here for a second. What if you found out that good friends and family members tend to predict what their family member is thinking
Yeah.
a lot more frequently than someone else?
But I wouldn't. Yeah, I believe that could be the case.
Do you think that's coincidence or not?
So I don't think it's coincidence. No.
Why not?
But I don't think it's telepathy either.
Yeah, but wait, why don't you think it's coincidence?
Because they probably just know like the mannerisms, the habits, the thought process of their friend.
Yeah, they just know, like, hey, I know what you're gonna think, right? You're gonna take this personally or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so you agree with that premise, but you don't accept the conclusion, right? You agree that it cannot be dismissed as mere coincidence, or maybe you do. You agree that it might be able to. Maybe you don't agree with such a strong version of this.
Yeah, I think it's like the strength of that.
But
statement.
you don't have to believe in telepathy to believe that to have that strong of a conviction in this sentence, right? Like I think the reason you have a slightly reserved interpretation of the sentence is you're like, well, first of all, I'm studying for the LSAT, so I'm not going to say anything so blatantly strong. But you could almost agree with that statement, right? And you could see how someone might agree with that statement wholeheartedly and now have no belief whatsoever.
Yeah, I guess that's it. So yeah, so that makes E correct.
Yeah.
And then B is just like the next greatest answer.
Yes. I feel like it's the best answer just because I think that's the biggest problem with this argument, right? It almost like really telepathy between good friends and family members. If it was between people who had no knowledge of each other and there was some surprise, even then you'd be skeptical. You'd say, well, telepathy or just like we all learn to read each other pretty well through facial expressions or whatever.
So I think one of the things that threw me off B was that it was singular maybe. That's like A, highly plausible, which made me think in some way that it was like referring to some, like everyone that chose it had to have the same idea in mind. Like there had to be an obvious alternative.
Oh,
So, like if it were plural, I would have been more likely to choose it.
I thought the highly plausible alternative explanation was the fact that they know each other.
So that.
Well, close friends and family.
Yes.
Okay.